What's up, everyone? It's Dave here from Mike and Dave's Multiverse. For those of you guys who are wondering where Mike is, he's taking a little break this week. We've got my good friend and colleague, Rebirth of the Word, Tyrone, joining the show as a co-host. What's up, Tyrone?
What's going on? How you doing, everybody?
I'm glad to have a co-host. It's hard to do this thing on my own. Also, we've got our lovely producer Brittany on screen tonight. So say hi, everyone. Say hi to everyone, Brittany.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
She's going to be doing her normal thing. She's just going to be on screen, kind of like Nerdrotic does with X-Ray Girl. So. And hey, Rue, the Goob is going to be on in about 20 minutes. We just do our own little thing first. And then we bring on the guests. So we're gonna kill about 20 minutes before the Goob comes on. For those of you guys who don't know, the Goob has a YouTube channel, and he's been researching NAGPRA, the Native American Grave Repatriation Act, for about a year now. And we're really looking forward to bringing him on in about 15 minutes to talk about that. And I think he's got a really interesting take that I want your guys' feedback on. And if you agree with what he has to say, you can spread the word. But first things first, what you been up to, Tyrone? You talked to my boy Laird Scranton a couple of days ago, didn't you?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome, man. He's very knowledgeable on a doggone tribe, and I follow them a lot because of the simple fact they have a lot of similarities with the ancient Egyptians and the Sumerians. And so if they have the same similarities, you know, the storyline, where does it really originate from? Does it originate from the doggone people, or does it originate somewhere else?
Yeah, the Dogon really throw a wrench in in the story of human history. Yeah. I mean, there's evidence that these guys knew about quantum physics and like planets that like you weren't supposed to know about, and all kinds of different astronomical stuff and scientific things. And the man to talk to about the Dogon is Laird Scranton, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It was a pleasure meeting him and speaking to him because, like I said, he's very knowledgeable, and what he has to say is very interesting. You know, I understand why he called his first book "Science of the Dogon." I understand it now from speaking to him more, on a personal level.
Yeah, I mean, because these guys actually like understood science in a different way than we do, though, right? It's sort of like in a symbolic and almost mythological way, right?
Yeah, symbolic. Like I always talk about how, you know, the Sumerians are known as the first civilization because of their pictographic script, but you know, there's been pictographic scripts all around the world that predate the Sumerians. So, I mean, you got to figure out what you would consider a civilization. And then when you look at the Dogon, they have a lot of symbolism in their throughout their culture. So and I look at it just like how we use emojis as today. You know, people use smiley faces for things. Some people use clapping hands and stuff like that, or that could be the praying hands, depending on the context and your understanding of what you're looking at. So, yeah.
Yeah, Pat Bree says Mike snuck into CERN and is pushing buttons right now. Yeah, that would be hilarious, right? He's about to melt the universe at the Large Hadron Collider. I can actually picture that, except I think the roles would be reversed. It'd be me, the one who is pushing the random buttons, and not Mike. Yeah, when does that episode come out, Tyrone?
It's going to come out about next week, sometime early next week. I like to watch my videos multiple times. I know you heard me say I like to read the same book 3 times before I talk about it. It's the same thing with videos. I have to watch it over and over again, at least 3 times, so that way I can get a feel of what I'm listening to, because I might not catch something the first time. Just like with any movie, you know, the reason why movies are our favorite movies is because we always catch something new in it that we didn't catch before. And we replay that over and over and over again. It never gets boring.
That's true. I showed my wife The Shawshank Redemption. She'd never seen it before, and I've watched it literally 20 times, and I noticed some shit that I never seen before. So, but yeah, you're more diligent with your editing than me. I listened through one time on double speed, but I also have a Brittany who gives me show notes and where I can go directly to the places that I need to cut out and stuff. So, thank you, Brittany, for that. We got 19 people so far viewing. Just wanted to say, if you're new to the show, This is Mike and Dave's Multiverse. Mike's off tonight. We got Tyrone filling in. This is our Thursday night live stream. We do this almost every Thursday. We also drop an episode where we interview just interesting people from all different walks of life. Mike and I happen to be interested in things like UFOs and ancient history, but that's not all we interview. For example, tomorrow we've got a special episode of Humans of the Multiverse dropping. It's just me and my good friend Walt Rutherford, who's a Vietnam veteran and a mentor of mine. And it's going to be dropping tomorrow afternoon, sort of celebrate the 4th of July, but it's just an Iraq war veteran and a Vietnam war veteran chopping it up about life. So I did want to play a quick, this isn't an official short that I published or anything, but it's just something I grabbed quickly. Walt talking about PTSD with veterans. So I'm going to play that really quick. And here we go. Let's go. Yeah. And it's frustrating that you guys didn't get the same help that we got. When I got back, it was a pretty new thing as far as I understand. When I got back from Iraq in 2006, and it took over my life almost immediately. Like I said, I was going down the rabbit hole of finding out how much I was lied to. I also had this like morbid, I constantly, almost every day, would be watching things that blew up, like on the side of the road, videos on YouTube and other places of like IEDs going off for some reason, because I didn't enjoy it. I just was watching it. I would watch it all the time. I thought that actually I should have watched that all the way through, because I thought Walt actually said something in there. But Walt is like one of the kindest, most empathetic, most wonderful guys I know, and I've learned so much from him. And this guy was like in the real shit in Vietnam, And we did an original interview with him way back when. It's one of our highest viewed episodes. If you haven't checked it out, please go back and look at it. But this one's just me and Walt, just kind of talking about veterans issues, our story, how we met, that kind of thing. So please go check that out.
Can I just say something real quick?
Of course.
First, thank you, Pat. That's very nice. But I also wanted to say, because I saw that interview with Walt, and it's extremely emotional, and it's a really, really great episode. So I highly suggest it. I'm going to suggest it to all my friends and family to watch. It's a really good one.
Thank you,
just
Brittany.
wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate that. And with 4th of July coming up, we've got our guest host is also a combat veteran. So I just wanted to say thank you for your service, Tyrone, as well. It's always weird when people say that to me, so I don't know why I just said that to you. But we got into talking about fireworks and how most veterans hate fireworks, yet we blow them off on the 4th of July. They don't really bother me that much. Initially they did, but what about, does that bother you?
It's so funny that you say that, because the timing is right. I've been out 12 years now? No, 11 years, something like that. I can't remember. I've been out since I can't even remember. I've been out for a while, and I haven't popped any fireworks since then. And this year I went and bought some. So
you did?
Yeah, I sure did. I was like, I bought me some good ones too, so it's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be popping off at Tyrone's house, huh?
Yeah, definitely. It's I was just thinking about that today, because I haven't been doing it, just because, for the simple fact, like you said, it used to bother me. I got blown up in Afghanistan. I used to, every time. I mean, I could tolerate it when I knew it was going to happen. The neighbors would do it and stuff like that. I'll probably get some headphones, put it on, sound canceling headphones, so I don't have to worry about it for that night. Or I'll watch like my favorite show, The Simpsons. That tunes out everything for me. So, I used to have these little rituals when I knew that they were going to pop off, to get myself ready for them. And now I just said, I got to go out there and do it. Because matter of fact, meeting you guys in person, at Cosmic Summit, I never been anywhere by myself like that since I got out the military, just because of my PTSD. So it was really hard just to go out there and do it, because you know I try to stay away from people and stuff like that for so many obvious reasons and stuff. Like Yvette knows, you know, we don't have to let that be told. But I said, you know, I'm going to try something different. So this year is like trying a whole bunch of different things. I'm definitely going to pop some fireworks.
Love it. That's healing. That's healing in action, and that's a lot. Walt and I talk about it in the episode. We talk a lot about PTSD and veterans, and just in general PTSD, and how one can recover. Both Walt and I were mental health counselors for a long time. Walt was actually involved in getting PTSD recognized by the VA as a disabling condition. And he tells that story in the episode, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, with fireworks, for me, it's similar to you. I didn't really love them. Like I was blown up in Iraq, and I didn't really love fireworks, but I just kind of expected them, but I didn't like being really up close to them. When I bought my house here in 2018, I think. Yeah. And it was like a 4th of July. We had a party, and I was like, screw it, I'm blowing some fireworks off. And so ever since then, I've blown some fireworks off too. So happy 4th of July to everyone tomorrow. Hope you enjoy our episode of Humans of the Multiverse with Walt Rutherford. We're excited to drop it. I wanted to shout out a couple of people. First off, George Sakalaris from Yorgos Designs. He created us some merch and a merch store. So if you feel like supporting us, you can get a couple shirts. You can get different hats. You get hoodies, sweaters without hoodies. There's a track jacket. There's books. There's cups. So we're going to put that Brittany's going to put that in the description, as well as in the chat. But we brought some stuff to Cosmic Summit, like a small amount of things, and people liked them. Everyone was asking for them. So we just decided to create a little merch store, and maybe we'll sell some stuff. Maybe some Mike and Dave's Multiverse merch will be floating around out there in the ether somewhere. That'd be kind of cool.
That's one thing that he talked about a lot, the ether.
Who's that?
Larry Scranton.
Oh yes, he for sure. And well, there's probably a lot of stuff. I think we live in an ether, probably. You know what I mean? Like we're floating in the ether right now. You know. The other thing was, we got a new book of the month. This is probably our 4th book of the month. People who come on the show and have written a book, we like to promote their book weekly as our book of the month. And we post that all over social media and stuff like that. Tyrone's book was book of the month, Journey Through the History of Time. If you want to grab that and pop it up there. But I'm going to show the new book of the month. Yep, there's Tyrone's. You can still use that link, actually, to support the channel and Tyrone. So I think the link still exists. But yeah, the book of the month this month is UFO Symphonic Journey into Sound by Mike Fiorito, who was a guest on the show a while back. Here's the book cover right here. You can order it on Amazon. Brittany's going to drop the link in the description as well as in the chat. But it's a really fascinating book, just about if you think about how everything is, the universe is vibrational. We're vibrational beings. Matter vibrates. He kind of takes that, and like all the ancient monuments in history have vibrational properties, and he kind of connects all that to the UFO UAP phenomenon. And it's really interesting concept. And Mike's a really interesting guy. He's a musician and just a gentleman. And so we wanted to promote his book. So check that out. There's the Goob. And yeah, we're rolling right through. So there's a few things that we do on the show, Mike and I usually. Mike does a little bit of solar weather. Which I did want to make a little announcement. We're going to be having the geophysicist and solar weather guru, Mr. Stephen Burns, on the show in a few weeks. Yes, Tyrone.
Man, check this out. Yesterday, me and the family was driving from Puller, Georgia, and we seen one of those meteorites come straight down.
Yeah. So when was that?
That was just yesterday. Just yesterday. So they've been having this going on for the last few days around Georgia, but I seen one yesterday.
Wow, my
And
niece saw one playing tennis the other day too, like about 5 days ago.
yeah, I don't know what's going on in Georgia, but it is hot out here with those. So if you love being outside at night, look up there, because I'm telling you, and it didn't look like any shooting star that I've seen in the past either. I've seen plenty of shooting stars. This one looked totally different.
We're in the middle of one of those meteor streams, I think, this time of year. Brittany, will you look that up for me? What meteor stream it happens in July, and that we happen to be passing through? But yeah, like my niece was like at tennis practice and was like said to the coach, "What was that?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And this one actually supposedly created like a minor earthquake. It vibrated the Earth's mantle. How about that? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so we usually do solar weather as well as our cosmic neighborhood. So before we bring the Goob on very shortly, I'm going to just, you guys probably have been seeing this show up in your feeds. Interstellar comet hurtling through the solar system named 31/Atlas or 30I/Atlas, an object from another star has been seen entering the solar system at high speed and expected to whip around the sun in the coming months. I'm going to switch feed. This is a different, let's see, space.com. But this astronomer is actually talking about this live. I'm not going to play it or anything, but if you guys want to like learn about this and like the exact updates about this interstellar object that's hurtling towards space at super fast speeds, it's supposed to like graze by Mars, I think too. It's not going to hit us, but he's talking about it right now, and he's showing all kinds of data that they have and the imaging that they've been using and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm gonna pull up a Grok conversation I had just because I was asking Grok about this.
I do that too. You know, I just added that to my what I've learned from reading this book series.
What I've learned from reading Grok?
Well, what I do is if I find something interesting that I've tabbed up that I want more information on, or to see if it's accurate or whatever the case may be, mostly just to see if it's still accurate, I'll ask Grok right there on the spot.
Nice. Tell everyone about your what I learned from reading this book series real quick before I get into this, and then we'll bring the Goob on here in a couple minutes.
All right. So basically what I do is I pick a book from my library that has a lot of tabs on there that I've read at least 3 times. And what I do is I go through each tab and talk about exactly, or say exactly what's on that tab. And then I add to it from, previous knowledge that I have from other books. So I go through every book in my library. I just pick a random book. It's always something to do with history, religion, physics, UFOs, what we're talking about, conspiracies, mythologies, all kinds of things. It's mostly just, just what I feel like reading at that time. And I have a list on my website, rebirthoftheword.com, of all the books that I've read at least 3 times. And I go through that list. I think I'm on like number 42 or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, it's an interesting series that he does. Tyrone. He's one of the hardest working guys in the business. You'll see him on different people's podcasts, and he's always in the spaces on X talking. And he's a published writer with a bestseller. And so we're really happy to have him on the show today. Did we get that meteor stream? Tammy's saying the Torrid. Brittany says a recent meteor event over Georgia resulted in a bright fireball and sonic booms with fragments potentially landing in Henry County. The meteor, which was initially spotted at an altitude of 48 miles above Oxford, Georgia, disintegrated about 27 miles above West Forest, unleashing an estimated 20 tons of TNT's worth of energy, according to the Smithsonian Magazine. Damn, that's a big one. And it looks like it's in July, Georgia skies will feature the Southern Delta Aquarids meteor shower. So it's not the Torrids, according to Brittany. When's the Torrids, Brittany? But yeah,
it's July 29th to 30th. But you could also expect to see some early proceeds during this time as they become active in mid-July.
And this time of year, we're basically hurtling through meteor streams. So you're going to see stuff like that. Go out to a dark sky area, a park, a national or state park, something like that, somewhere there's a dark sky. Bring your camera, bring your binoculars. You're probably going to see something for the next 3 to 5 months. We're going to be going through all these different meteor streams. So yeah, we got our guest waiting in the wings, the Goob from the Goob YouTube channel. Like I said, he's going to be talking about NAGPRA. So we're going to ask him, well, how did he get into this topic? And then what his research has been looking like, and what kind of things has he uncovered about the Native American Grave Repatriation Act. He's got a YouTube channel that Brittany's going to put in the chat as well as the description, called the Goob, easy to find. He's also on X. Let's go ahead and bring him in the room. The Goob, there you are.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I know you're really eager to get this information out. In fact, you said it's the most important issue going on in archaeology right now, and that's
by miles.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself, whatever you're comfortable with, and then share with us, how did you get into this topic?
Yeah. So I hated history in school. It was by far my least favorite subject. I don't really think I learned much of anything in school, but I did enjoy just reading alternate ideas. You know, the idea that Saturn used to be a brown dwarf that the Earth used to rotate around, and that was captured by the sun. I loved reading things like that. So that's kind of what brought me into this. And then as the years went on, I kind of got more serious and started actually researching things, started seeking out archaeological papers and things like that. But what brought me into NAGPRA specifically is I was trying to reach out to Brad Lepper at the Ohio History Connection to ask him a question about the Hanukkah Mound, which is a mound that looks like a giant menorah, an oil lamp in the middle of America. And I wanted him to explain to me why this wasn't Hebrew influence. I unfortunately wasn't able to talk to Brad Lepper, but while I talked to the guy who was in charge of the PR department at the Ohio History Connection, I said, hey, you know, I've been trying to learn about Native American history. I've been trying to see artifacts, and I've barely been able to find anything online. Do you have a good gallery, or, you know, can you recommend a good online repository for me to study? And he chuckled at me and he goes, yeah, no, you're not going to find anything like that due to the federal regulation. And my mind was so blown by that statement that I didn't even have a follow-up question, and the conversation moved on. But as soon as we hung up, I started looking into what he was talking about, because I was familiar with NAGPRA, the 1990 version of NAGPRA,
Sure,
which made it illegal to display Native American bodies in public. But that's largely all that the original NAGPRA did, was offer some respect to Native Americans. But in 2024, January 12th to be specific, it was massively updated. And I mean massively updated, so that it no longer made it illegal to present Native American bodies. It made it illegal to present anything to the public. And this resulted in nearly every single museum across America that had a Native American exhibit to be forced to close down. There were museums that resorted to throwing tarps over their exhibits because they became illegal on the 12th. And it wasn't just the physical exhibits. This also extended to any media. So all of these online galleries that used to exist, they were wiped out January 12th. Thousands and thousands of images deleted overnight, no longer available to the public. And this problem goes way beyond even just the artifacts and images. It is a complete and total effort to erase all archaeology within America. And while NAGPRA is specific to the United States of America, this problem is expanding out to all Western nations. And after I hung up the phone, I found those news articles talking about museums closing, and then I immediately went to the federal government and read every single word of NAGPRA and every single word of the update. And I read through it all, and I literally didn't believe what I was reading. I thought I misinterpreted it because it is legalese, it is dense. I'm not a lawyer. So I thought, surely I'm misunderstanding this. And I spent the next 3 to 4 months continuing to study NAGPRA. I reached out to lawyers who specialize in NAGPRA. I reached out to the government, and I had it confirmed that everything I was seeing was in fact true, that this law effectively put a ban on public knowledge and public access to Native American history. And so this is, this is such a big topic. I could talk about it for well beyond an hour and still only have covered, a small portion of it, because this is impacting the ability for archaeologists to do digs. This is doing so many different things, all of them bad, and all of them withholding and destroying information of our ancient past. Like the trend is moving only in one direction, and the trend is the destruction and erasure of history. And this isn't some distant problem. This isn't something that might happen in the future. It's something that has already happened. Like I said, every museum across America forced to close down its exhibits, every image online pulled, books are being pulled from shelves. So much information has already been lost, and it's only continuing to be lost. So that's a brief overview.
That's wild. And that was actually affected Mike and I, because before we even knew this was a thing, we had planned to go see Native American mounds in Georgia. That's where we live. We went to see a handful last fall. So that would have been the fall of 2024. You're saying this happened January 12th of 2024. So by the time we got to some of these sites, you couldn't see anything. They had the main exhibits closed, and I'm all for like not displaying like somebody's skeleton or something like that. I get that, but we were like having to ask the park rangers, like about this, and they were like, "Yeah, sorry," and we really didn't know the extent of it. Not even really till I saw your video a few. I don't know, about a month ago when I saw one of your videos, but you've made several on the topic. And I guess some first question at the top of my head is, who rewrote or did the law, and who's responsible for that?
Yeah, so Deb Haaland was the former director of Interior Secretary, the Department of Interior, and she and the Department of Interior rewrote this law, which is a violation of the Constitution, right? There was a case with the EPA and Shell, I think, because the EPA was effectively writing law through its regulations, and Shell sued them and went, "Hey, that is not your job. You can't write law." And they overturned those regulations. So there is a precedent set to overturn this update to NAGPRA. But it would have to go through the courts, which is something that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, the law was initially written in 1990, and the spirit of the law was to create a balance between respect for Native Americans and allowing archaeologists to conduct science and study Native Americans. Right. That was spoken about very openly by the senators who, were writing this law and proposing this law. The Department of Interior, Deb Haaland, she explicitly said, there's a question and answer section on the Federal Register website where there's a couple hundred questions that people send in and comments that people send in, and they responded to all of them. And she states quite explicitly that under this reinterpretation, there is zero consideration for science, that this is not about striking a balance, that this is exclusively about repatriating objects, and that science is not even a consideration. So yeah, she has completely bastardized what the original intent of this law was, completely rewritten it. And it's written so incredibly broadly. If you read through the law, it doesn't explicitly say that you can't display images or anything like that, but it's written kind of like YouTube guidelines, right? YouTube doesn't give you a list of words that you're not allowed to say. They just say, hey, you better not like be offensive, and you figure out what that means. And so the same thing happened with NAGPRA. They didn't like list out, you can't display images, you can't display this, but they very broadly said all of this is off limits. And so every single museum, every single university, every single large institution of archaeology has come out with their own policies in response to this law. And every single one has done things like banning images, banning artistic depictions, banning recreations. I got an anecdote from a lawyer who's involved in this, who was hired by a school. The school self-imposed this audit to make sure that they weren't in violation of any NAGPRA. And they didn't just check the archaeology department. Like, they were going through the physics department. They were going through the staff's offices, like looking for paintings on the wall that might have Native American subject matter, because this is the extent of the purge that they're, you know, permeating here. And so it is a complete and total erasure, a complete and total ban on Native American information. But yeah, the Department of Interior is who's responsible for it. And hopefully with the new secretary, maybe they can roll that back. Maybe it can be undone through the courts. Like I said, there's precedent for it. It's a legal mess as well. Like, there's so many legal issues with this. It's a blatant First Amendment violation. Separation of church and state, right? This law mandates that these archaeology institutions, they have to not only include Native American voices and defer to Native American voices, but they have to include Native American religious leaders who practice Native American religion on their boards. So that's a violation of church and state. And also, like, people don't often think of Native American religions the same way as they do kind of the big religions, right? But imagine if Mormons were given this type of ability in America. If the President of the United States and the Department of Interior were putting out directives saying that archaeologists and scientists have to defer to Mormon opinion anytime there's a disagreement on the science. If a Mormon religious leader says one thing, that is what it is. That overrides the science. And for those of you who don't know, Mormons also claim American history. They claim that they were here 2,000 years ago. So I'm not just picking a random religion. But that's what they've done with Native Americans, is if there's a disagreement, the scientists have to defer. They have to throw out the science, and they have to go with the Native Americans say now. That is written into the law now. And a lot of archaeologists were already doing this before 2024, but now that is mandated. It's not an option.
So one thing I was, when I was talking to some of the park rangers at some local parks here in Georgia, they were saying that in many cases, these artifacts and burial sites and different things like that can't actually be like, many of the local Native American tribes don't even like claim them. Somebody, yeah, they don't. They're not affiliate. They can't affiliate these sites or things with anybody specific who's like alive or any organization or. So then this stuff just gets kind of put on a shelf. Is that true?
That is absolutely true, and that was definitely an issue before, but that's no longer true. That is no longer true because they did. It's a fantastic question, maybe the best question you could ask. So they did away with the term unaffiliated. Legally, unaffiliated no longer exists. So every single thing must be affiliated with a tribe, and there's also been a 5-year time limit for every single thing. So every artifact, every remain, everything to be repatriated within those 5 years. So all that stuff that was sitting on shelves, that will get sent to Native American tribes. Now, there's a few really major issues with this. There's, I think, like 500 roughly federally recognized tribes in America. There's several hundred that aren't federally recognized. And according to NAGPRA, and this was made even stricter under the new update, those tribes do not exist. They have absolutely no right to they're real tribes that are still in existence today and have history in America from before. They have zero right to any of their artifacts. The museums are not allowed to return those artifacts to the proper tribes. They must be given to one of these other federally recognized tribes. But even more egregious than that, I mean, that's terrible for them. But my concern is with the history, and my concern is with the ancient history. So an even more egregious historical issue is that all of these tribes that no longer exist, like the Hopewell, tribes that existed thousands of years ago, that have been extinct for thousands of years, those are what are most aggressively being erased and purged from the record and will never reappear on the record or in museums again. because all of that also must be affiliated with a modern tribe and must be returned. You have the Kennewick man who was reburied several years ago, I think in 2018, and that was like an 8,000-year-old ancestor that didn't have very close genetic relations to modern tribes today, doesn't have any direct cultural ties to modern tribes today, and it actually didn't fall under NAGPRA, under the old interpretations, because this was 2018 before the update. And so Obama actually had to order an executive order to have it reburied under executive order because they couldn't do it under NAGPRA. And it was buried in a secret location under 10 tons of gravel so that no one can ever inspect it again. But all of those remains are now being affiliated with modern tribes. They are being given to the modern tribes. And generally speaking, modern tribes don't want to show off this stuff because it's not them. They want to show off their heritage. They want to show off their history. A lot of what's in museums now, because museums are starting to reopen, is actually like post 1492. It's post Columbus. It's still these tribes, but it's from, the 1600s, the 1700s. And it's more recent, and that's what they want to show off because that's their culture, that's their heritage. They're still around, and they want to go, hey, look at us. And so what's suffering the most here is the most ancient, the things that I'm the most interested in. That's all being removed from museums. The remains are being removed from archaeologists' ability to study them. They are being physically destroyed. I mean, once they get reburied in a secret location, like that's effectively the same as destroying these things. They'll never be accessed by science or anyone else again. And they are quite literally also destroying things. There was a ceremony in which, after repatriating bodies, they burned the x-rays, the associated x-rays and research that had been done on these skeletons. They destroyed the research. And that was presented publicly, but a big part of all of this is that all of this is done in secret, right? It's all about respect to the natives and bringing back dignity to the natives. And so publicizing this is disrespectful. And in fact, NAGPRA information is handled in the exact same way that secret information is. It doesn't have the same designation as top secret information because it has no relevancy to national security, but it is handled with the exact same procedures as top secret information. It is not able to be released to the public. It is, it's all done in secret. All of this repatriation, all of the destruction of knowledge, that's all done behind the scenes. There's no record of it. It's not publicized anywhere. So this is why, there's already been this mass purge of information, and almost no one is aware that this has happened except for people like you who have shown up at museums to find them closed, who have shown up at sites to visit them, and there's nothing there. And, so largely this has been completely unreported. Myself, Sam Urban, illegitimate scholar, and Dr. Elizabeth Weiss are pretty much the only three people in the entire world that are actively trying to bring this message to the public. Yeah.
I'd love to talk to Greg Little about this. Tyrone, had you heard about this?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I actually went to a Civil War site about 2 or 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, Fort McAllister. And they had some Native American stuff not displayed there, but they had a sign that said, due to, I can't remember what it said, but like due to certain talks between a group of people, they decided not to share it. So they have a spot for it, but there's nothing there. It's just a little card or something. I can't exactly remember. I was trying to look it up for my computer, but it's probably on one of the many discs that I have because I keep pictures of all the museums of stuff that I have in it just for reasons just like this.
And so, Goob, in situations like that, what they're doing is they're having some sort of dialogue and they're trying to affiliate the stuff with a certain tribe, and then sometimes that tribe goes, "Well, we don't want that. We don't know. We don't have anything to do with that, or whatever." Right? Is that kind of
and that is an option, and that does happen a lot. So the process has been changed significantly. It used to work significantly differently. Now, if a tribe claims something, it's theirs, period.
Okay,
there is no
because they
discussion.
changed it.
Right. There is no discussion. There is no debate. If a tribe goes, that's ours, it's theirs. End of discussion. Now, if another tribe comes in and goes, wait, no, that's ours, then a debate happens between the tribes claiming it. But the museums or whatever, they're really not a part of it other than to maybe facilitate the conversation.
Do they check like genetic? Like, how do they, for stuff that's 20,000 years old or something, or 10,000 years old, how the hell do they?
This is a fun one, and this was true before the update, but now again it's legally mandated to be this way. Genetic testing is largely not done in America, and in fact archaeology is largely not done in America, not the way that people imagine archaeology is done, at least. Again, this is all about respecting the natives, and that's the most important thing above and beyond anything else is ever considered, respect for the natives. And so when archaeology digs happen in America, they are very carefully planned to not disturb any bodies. If there is suspicion that a body might be in a location, the dig does not happen. If a dig starts and a body is found, the dig is immediately stopped. Then the dig is replanned and they go, can we continue this without disturbing these bodies, or do we need to abandon the entire dig? That is the baseline like assumption that is built into archaeological digs already.
So that's like an archaeological ethics. There's no law about that. That's an ethical archaeological thing they teach you in school, or what?
Yes and no. So yes, that is archaeological ethics. That's somewhat unique to America. There's a certain word you don't want me to use, but it's that mentality that is driving this.
I appreciate it.
Right? It is over 99% of archaeologists in America are left-leaning.
Okay.
Over 99%. It is academia as a whole is very left-leaning. Archaeology is one of the most left-leaning in all of academia.
Okay.
And so they're also a very isolated institution. They don't interact with the public a lot. They don't interact with other fields of science a lot. They're quite isolated within themselves. So they have an echo chamber of leftist ideas because that's what they're made up of. And there's no one to give dissent. There's no one to give pushback. And so it can only get more and more extreme. It can only go in one direction. And that's what we've seen happen. And so it's been the norm for a while that in America, you don't disturb, you plan all of these things around not ever disturbing bodies. If you do dig up a body, DNA testing is very rarely done because it's destructive testing. Also, the DNA results could potentially be offensive or harmful to the Native Americans. You wouldn't want to do that. So that was kind of the policy before, but now it is actually written into law in certain ways. So this was already done. Most archaeologists who worked with Native Americans would already defer to Native Americans. If they were doing a dig and a tribe got upset about it and they said, hey, we don't want you to do this, 9 times out of 10, they would go, okay, we're done. We're not going to dig here anymore. We'll shut it down. Now, though, that's legally mandated. If the tribe goes, we don't want you to dig, you don't dig, period. If you're halfway through the dig and they go, we want you to rebury it, you rebury it. If you've written up a publication and they go, we don't want you to publicize that, you don't publish. They have absolute control now, which is legally enforced. It was already the case before the update, but now it is 100% legally mandated. But yeah, the way that archaeology is conducted in America is largely kind of antithetical to the ideas of archaeology. It's not for discovery. It's deliberately avoiding a lot of discovery. So yeah, genetic testing is very limited in America. The number of very ancient remains that we have is very limited. The amount of testing that's been done on them is very limited. And now those things are being repatriated to tribes who are going to rebury them in secret locations. They'll never be tested again. Any future discoveries, which are actively avoided, they actively try to avoid making these discoveries. But when they do happen, those again must be repatriated. They're not going to be studied. Like, this is a complete destruction of American archaeology. It's you know, and they're not allowed to publicize a lot of this stuff. So even though digs are still happening right now in America, even though archaeological work is still happening, it's lessened. And without the ability to publicize on these things properly and honestly, and without, you know, filtering them through political lenses, finance is going to dry up because interest is going to dry up. Like, who wants to pay for a dig where you're not allowed to publicize the finds to the public? You know, so while it hasn't entirely stopped archaeology yet, it is stopping archaeology. Dr. Elizabeth Weiss checked every single collection in the state of California to see what the procedures would be for gaining access for studying these Native American remains. And not a single collection in the entire state of California is available for study. Archaeologists are not able to study a single collection in the entire state of California. They're all off limits for study. So that's one state, and California is leading the charge as far as who's the furthest left and who's the furthest down this extreme culture of archaeology NAGPRA path. But that is largely happening across the country. Things are becoming less and less available for study, less and less available for the public to know about and see. And it is all just, it's all getting erased. It's all going away.
And, you know, like, we don't do politics on the show, but this is politically motivated, right? It's
100%.
It's ideologically motivated, and it's happening in a vacuum, it sounds like most things do in university settings and things like that. So and then I'm probably going to this is probably going to simplify this, but like the outcome is we don't get to learn about our history. And I look at history like it's human history, human heritage, and it should belong to all of us. And when you're talking about things that are like, you know, mounds and things that we know are 10,000, 20,000 years old, when you can't actually connect it to like a living set of people in any like direct way, and you're saying they don't even do that anyway, then we're missing out on like learning about our past, right? That's the biggest concern.
And to be clear, they're forced to do that. So even when there's not a connection, they're forced to make the connection. So every single thing must be attributed to one of these modern tribes, even though there's no attribution. And it's crazy.
So have you? So I know you're getting a lot of pushback, like in a lot of dead ends. You know, reaching out to government agencies or universities and whatnot. Have you asked like some prominent people who are like sort of in the alt community? Like I know that these guys are both quote unquote academics, but they explore alternate ideas. Mound Lore on X or Dr. Greg Little. Have you asked any of these guys about this?
Yeah, so Mound Lore's pretty pro NAGPRA.
Okay.
We haven't talked about it too much, but I brought it up with them. Greg, we've exchanged some comments, but nothing too much. He's confirmed that, yes, what I'm saying is happening. Dr. Elizabeth Weiss, I've interviewed her and I've discussed this with her. She's literally the only active archaeologist, the only archaeologist that's still in the profession of archaeology that is speaking out against this. She has a similar story to Jordan Peterson. She was viciously attacked by her colleagues and her university. She still is today. If you mention her name to an archaeologist, you will get some very aggressive and interesting comments in response. She has suffered greatly, but all she did was tell the truth and say, hey, maybe this is going too far. We shouldn't just be destroying these things. And it's, I've also had a couple archaeologists reach out to me privately and thank me for the coverage that I'm doing, because they're not able to cover this themselves. They're not able to speak out against this, or else they would lose their career.
Or the tenure, yeah.
Yeah, they said, yeah, I'm not tenured yet, so I can't speak out against this.
Yeah, I've been told that by plenty of people about so many different subjects that they couldn't come out with certain things because they weren't tenured.
And even Elizabeth Weiss, who had tenure, they really tried hard to take that away and take everything away. It's incredible what she endured. Truly, like her dean gave a speech that was titled like "What to Do When Your Colleague is Branded a Racist," and he opens it up like agreeing, like, yeah, you know, we all know who we're talking about. I'll refer to as like Jonah Smith, but we all know who. And like, you know, I certainly agree with the accusations, and it was really, really crazy the treatment she got.
Yeah.
But
people are crazy out there. You know?
But yeah, as far as the alt community, though, you're the first person I've spoken to about this publicly. I think that the story is so big that it doesn't register with people. Like Sam Urban, he's been on a couple large podcasts and he's brought this up with them. And he's gone, hey, NAGPRA was massively updated and it's made archaeology in America illegal. And people just go, oh, okay, that's interesting, and move on with the conversation. Like, I don't think people are able to comprehend what's actually happening here because it is so massive. And it's so massive that it's like, how could I have not heard about this? You're saying that all American archaeology was wiped from the record a year and a half ago in America? And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm saying. They're like, well, surely I would have heard about that. So that's obviously nonsense. I think that's what's going on. I don't really know because, yeah, I've had very, very little... like no one wants to talk about this. No one wants to cover this.
I got a question. Have you talked to Jimmy Corsetti about it? You know, he's big on that, predicting stuff and getting people to move their feet, even though sometimes he can go out there and be exaggerating on some stuff. He gets some stuff. He can get some stuff done. I've
tried bringing it to his attention. I don't think I've really made it on his radar.
Yeah, you keep trying because he's really good. Like he when he gets into it, he gets into it hard, and it's very.
I've tried bringing it up with pretty much everyone I can think of, and I just haven't gotten anywhere. And I get the hesitance to accept it because, like I said in the beginning of this show, for about 3 or 4 months, after directly being told by the Ohio History Connection that, yeah, you're not going to find anything like that due to the federal regulations, after reading the entire NAGPRA law, after continuing to study it for 3 or 4 months, I was still telling myself, like, no, I've made a mistake. This isn't happening. Like, something else is going on. Like, it's not really this bad. And it is. It is as bad as that, and it's even worse. So for the last year, I've continued studying this, and I just keep learning that it's worse than I think it is. Like, every week, I learn something new and go, holy crap.
You know? Yeah, I hate to put my conspiracy hat on here, but like I know just growing up in Canada, we learned about Native Canadians, same thing. I'm not to say I shouldn't say that, but like same continent, same native land.
A lot of similarity.
And yeah, a lot of similarity. We mostly learned about the Micmacs because they were local to where I grew up. But what we were taught was like often wrong in that like Native American history wasn't as interesting as it actually is, and that their culture and civilization wasn't as technological as it actually was, and that it didn't go back as far as it actually is. I remember in school going back maybe 400 or 500 years, and then everything before that was just, you know, going back as soon as Europeans arrived, and then that was it, right?
Yes.
And then everything before that was not worth looking into. But if you study like people like Edgar Casey and Dr. Greg Little and his work on mound civilization and stuff like that, you start to realize that in the Americas in general, there was like massive civilizations that built massive structures and had all kinds of history that I personally really want to learn about. And so what you're telling me is because of ideological, echo chambers and high-fiving each other for being like, quote unquote, doing the right thing. That's being shut down. That kind of pisses me off, man.
Yes. And specifically, all of this is being impacted, but specifically, yeah, that pre-Columbus, the more ancient it is, the more under threat it is. It's no longer just not going to be taught in schools. It's no longer going to be available whatsoever. The research will be destroyed. The physical bodies and artifacts will be reburied and hidden away. And you're not going to be able to see this or learn about these things at all in the future. Like, that's already happened, but it's only going to continue happening more and more.
Wow. Here's an article written by our very own Tyrone Ellington. Tell us about this.
So if you scroll down just a little bit, scroll down some, which I was talking about 20,000 years. I want to show you something.
Keep going.
Keep going, keep going. Okay, right there is good. Oh, go up, go just a little bit. Right there, you see where it says 17,000 years ago? So as soon as you walk in the Okmulgee Mounds Museum inside, on the walls all across around, it has, you know, the years that certain things happened that was over there in that area. And they say 17,000 years ago here. So when you was talking about earlier about how history has taught us, you know, basic lies and stuff like that, I was very shocked when I first walked in. I've been to this place like 3 or 4 times already. It's in Macon, Georgia. And, you know, I took a lot of pictures. If you scroll down just a little bit, I took a lot of pictures of a lot of stuff that was there. And that was probably like, I want to say, I can't even remember, to be honest with you. When did I write this article?
I will scroll down, but I wanted to say, so I asked the Goob, so under the new law, that painting could be interpreted as quote unquote offensive or something and get covered up or whatever. If like a tribe who was connected to 17,000 years ago in some way or another.
Anyone could make the complaint. It doesn't have to come from a tribe. I could walk in there and call up and go, hey, they've got a painting displaying Native American subject matter. And fun fact, the update was so broad and written so broadly in every possible way that you would have been in violation of NAGPRA as an individual for having these photographs posted publicly. And they had to create an emergency addendum to specify that NAGPRA would not apply to individual citizens because it was originally written so broadly that it would have. But it does apply to every single business in the country. It applies to, right? So it applies to any entity that has ever accepted a single cent of federal funds. And after COVID, that is every single business in America. The Department of Interior on that federal registrar question and answer section, right? It was asked, like, are you going to be enforcing this on private businesses? And the response that they gave was not yet. They said that we are going to focus on the institutions that were already dealing with NAGPRA, so museums, universities, etc. And we're going to get all of that information purged from all of them first. And then once we've done that, then we might move on to private businesses.
I have a question about that. So I'm trying to think of, so there was a Netflix series I watched recently called American Primeval, and it's probably the best Wild West series I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But would that apply to media as well? How does media fit into this?
Potentially. So again, it's very, very broad. It's very vague. So again, there's nothing in there saying that you can't have a painting on the wall. There's nothing in there. These are coming from, but it could apply to that. It's written so broadly, it could apply to that, right? It could apply to a movie depicting these types of things. It's unlikely that right now, you know, the federal government's going to come down on anyone for making a movie. But again, this only moves in one direction. This only goes in one direction. So while that's ridiculous now, is that ridiculous 10 years from now? Probably not, you know.
Censorship only moves in one direction, and that's essentially what this is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, that's what I see it as, yeah.
Wild. And so I
that
find
infuriates me, though. I'm sorry.
It should.
Because I love history. And if I'm local and I can't go across the seas, and I love history, and I can only do things in my city, my town, and my state, you know, it's taken away from me to learn about it. And then, you know, like you said, it's destroyed on top of that. So it's just reminds me of the Nazis burning the books time at that moment.
It really does, and it makes you. So you said a lot. So I wanted to rewind back to something. So you're saying they, in some cases, actually destroy stuff because of this?
So Elizabeth Weiss has a lot of great art. She's written 2 books on this subject. She's written a lot of great articles, given a lot of presentations on this. There's an article, I think, in Minding the Campus, where she describes a ceremony where after this tribe requested that some bodies be repatriated to them. So the museum gave the bodies back to the tribe. The tribe reburied them in a secret location. And then the tribe went, we also want to destroy all of the associated research with them. We want to reclaim and take that back. And to maintain our dignity, we want to destroy it. So the university gathered up all of the research and gave it to the tribe, and they burnt it in a ceremony. And that is one of the few instances where this has been recorded publicly. But for every instance of this type of thing that is publicized and shared, there's truly an untold amount that is happening behind the scenes that's never recorded and publicized. And you can hear in the paper I sent you, I mentioned a very specific YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
That video, you can hear the archaeologist talking about how one of the people from the audience asks, they're like, is there a list of repatriated items that we can read to, smell our farts to and pat ourselves on the back for, to like, look at all the things that we've taken out of the hands of science? And he goes, no, there's nothing like that. We work very hard not to publicize any of this. Like, one of the key things is respect and secrecy. This is never talked about publicly. And like I said earlier, everything that's NAGPRA is handled in the exact same way that top secret information is handled. None of this is released to the public unless the tribe requests it to be. And then they do that.
Can I ask, not that I'm not asking you to speak for Native Americans here, but have you spoken to any Native Americans individually or representatives who are like, don't like this as well? Like, or think this is bullshit too?
My interactions are limited enough that I really can't speak on any type of generalized stance. But, there are plenty of Native Americans who aren't happy with this. I really couldn't break it down proportion-wise.
Sure.
I know that there's Native Americans that are pushing for more of this, right? The people that are, and that's the kind of thing, is like the people who seek out these positions to be involved in NAGPRA are almost all the time the people who are like the most
left-leaning.
Well, yes, but also I don't know. I was looking for a specific word that's escaping me, but they're activists, right? Like they're not doing this for the purpose of preserving history, or like they're interested in power dynamics. They're interested in influencing, their power over people, and this is a way for them to do that. So like those types of people seek out these types of positions. So I don't think the people that are in the tribes that are dealing with this type of thing are representative of the tribes, but I don't know what the breakdown is.
That'd be an interesting kind of survey to look into, just to kind of travel around asking that question in those communities. Because, it's probably, you're right, it's more about activism. So whether you're a Native American or like white, brown, black guy in a university who's an archaeologist, it's more about like you said, smelling your own farts and, following the rules, right?
Yeah.
Rebirth, shout out to Rebirth from Australia, big supporter of our show. He's got a question here. What about all those famous artists who have made their living from Native American Indian imagery? Are they banned?
So in that same video I was just referencing, two things. One, they ask 4 different people, why did you get involved in archaeology? Not a single one of them says, because I want to learn about humanity's past. Every single one of them gave an answer like, well, because I'm Native American and I want to, fight for my rights. And it's like, okay. But the other thing is the archaeologist giving the presentation discusses some masks, some ceremonial masks that the museum originally held, and they were requested for repatriation. And so the museum gave them to the tribe, and the tribe reclaimed them as sacred objects. And this is well before the update, right? And then they commissioned from an artist in the tribe recreations of these masks. And the tribe sold them back to the museum at a pretty substantial price. And years later, still before the update, right? So like I said, a lot of archaeologists were already doing it this way, but now it's legally mandated since the update. So before the update, the tribe comes back and a tribal leader goes, hey, those are all sacred and you can't have them. They can't be on display. No one, we have to take those back. And so on the museum's dime, they went through the process of repatriation, which is an expensive process because you have to pay for consultation and all this other stuff. And then they shipped them back to the tribe. And the archaeologist then goes, and they can change their mind about any of this at any time. And we are happy to go along with whatever they say, whenever they say it. If they change their mind the next day and say these artifacts that they gave us yesterday are no longer to be displayed, then that is what we do, right? And so did that answer the question about?
I think so. I mean, like it seems to be the answer's broad and vague to all this stuff, right? It's like it's up to anybody who comes along with like, you could be 1/5 Cherokee and just roll in there and be like, yeah, you need to put that away, or what? Do they go off that stuff?
You could anyone could make a complaint to NAGPRA. So if you walked into a museum,
like me, white guy, right, Irish Floyd,
and you saw something that was associated with Native Americans, you could call up the hotline and go, hey, they've got something on display here, and they would send someone out and go, hey, did you have explicit permission from a tribe to display this? And if the answer is no, then they would be in violation of NAGPRA. They would get fined, punishments would happen. As far as you going, hey, I want that, that's mine, you need to give that to me. No, it can't just be any random Native American person. They have to have some position of authority within a tribe. Okay. So anyone with a position of authority within a tribe can do that. It doesn't like exclusively have to be the chief. It can be anyone who has like some degree of authority in the tribe, but it does have to come from someone with a degree of authority. It's not just any random person.
I got a question. Has it ever been used as a bribe? Like, if you don't do this, we're going to take this away.
That's a great question, and I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. I am going to be talking with a couple archaeologists in the next couple of weeks, so I'll ask them that because they would have more experience with that. One of the things that was brought up by one of them, though, and again, I need to learn more, so I don't want to say too much, but he did say that one of the things that happens is Native Americans will request the stuff for repatriation, and then after it gets repatriated, they'll find it on the black market.
Wow. So Rubate's asking, so let's pretend Rubate owns a gas station that took federal money during COVID, and he's also a painter, and he paints Native American stuff, and he paints a beautiful Native American painting and puts it up. Is that the same broad answer? Like somebody could make an NAGPRA complaint?
I'll answer it as best I can. So if in that specific scenario where it's a private business, right, but they've taken federal funds because of COVID, right? If I were to walk in there and I were to call the hotline, yes, he could potentially be in violation of NAGPRA. Would they enforce that? Almost certainly not, right? It's just a gas station. It has no association with like these institutions that are already dealing with NAGPRA. That would be absolutely insane. I would bet my life savings that they would never, ever enforce that today. But again, give it 10 years. Once they've gone through all the information in the universities and everything, yes, like that very likely could be enforced. And it is broad enough that it could be enforced today, but I don't think it would be.
That's again, like I said before, that's the direction this kind of stuff goes, right? Once you burn one book, then 10 years later, you got a whole pile of them, right?
That's why I mentioned what I mentioned, because it starts little by little. You're not going to take the whole pie and you're going to eat it in pieces.
And what Pat's saying is what my inclination, that's what I assume, right? I assume, like the rest of the population of America, I assume that most Native Americans don't even know that this is happening.
Yeah. I think that's the mission then, is asking the Native Americans, because I often wonder that about the sports teams and stuff when they change the names of those, how many actual Native Americans even give a shit you know, with the Chicago Blackhawks hockey team or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know a lot of them on Twitter. They actually have their own spaces, so I'll actually ask them that and see
Yeah,
what
and
they say.
if there is a connection, it is something I've been looking for, but I don't have an in, if you will. You know, I am interested in getting these perspectives from Native Americans. I am interested in interacting with tribes and learning more about their perspective. It's just not an opportunity I've had yet.
Yeah.
One of the I'm sorry.
You go.
I was just going to say, one of the guys, I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago about the Mississippian civilization. There was a guy that jumped in that was actually Native American that came in there and talked. We can also ask, see if we can get in contact with
Yona French Hawk.
Yeah, there you go, right there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
one
yeah.
right there. We can ask him, see how he feels about it.
Yeah, Yona French Hawk is a full-blood Cherokee. We met a couple weekends ago at Cosmic Summit.
Yeah, Greensboro, North Carolina.
In Greensboro. Yeah, it's so this is a sensitive subject because the Native Americans are considered and have been marginalized to an extreme way. And then so it seems like there's this overcorrection happening.
100%. It's fixing a colonial sin. That's what they're trying to fix. And that's the thing is, like, there's no shortage of travesties that the Native American population faced, and some of them not even that long ago, right? But none of those are happening today, right? And I don't want to say none of those because there's still land rights issues. There are still other issues. But as far as archaeology is concerned, like, I am entirely unaware of any archaeologists committing atrocities against Native Americans today. Like, that's just not happening. And so there's nothing to fix today. And so the only way to fix this is to erase the colonial sin. And that's what they're trying to do. Right.
And I did want to point out, you know, that Native Americans do still suffer from those colonial sins. And even so, I went to the University of South Dakota and I got a chance to visit two of the largest Native American reservations in the country, and they happen to be two of the poorest counties in the United States, if not the two poorest counties. And these are like third world countries in the middle of the United States. And so I only say that to say that that's why one of the reasons why people feel like they need to protect these people, but also I guarantee you nobody on those reservations gives a flying shit about this stuff. They're really just trying to survive. Yeah. And what kills me here is that this is the history of North America. It's because it's the archaeology of North America, because, you know, Native Americans were here thousands of years before the rest of us got here. That's all there is. And they're covering it all up. They're putting it all away. They're destroying it in some cases. And that just seems wrong. I feel like the way to, because none of us are going to move maybe Jimmy Corsetti could, because he's got a massive following, but like, I feel like Native Americans have to be the one to say no to this. That seems to me to be the answer. And I bet you $1 million if you walked or if you surveyed most of them, I'm guessing most of them would say, understand the implications that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, you know, this whole social hierarchy thing, right? Everyone's a victim and all of that. And it's like Native Americans, as you were just describing, there's still quite a few living in like really atrocious conditions. There's still land rights issues that are really, really bad and ongoing today. You know, they are one of the more genuinely victimized classes in America that still exists today.
Yes.
And they get a lot of kind of fanfare, you know, they get this NAGPRA nonsense and they get all this, so we've got to respect it. But like, as far as actually listening to Native American voices, they have no voice in America comparatively to other groups. You know, you look at Black people or Mexicans or LGBTQ, like where's the Native voice? It doesn't exist. The people do not care about Native Americans in America. They pretend to care. They put on this fanfare, but when it actually comes to listening to Native Americans, I hear nothing.
Yeah. And addressing these issues that they're facing, because what does NAGPRA do for, like, I'm trying to think of, Brittany, can you look up the 2 large reservations in South Dakota? But I'm Rosebud or something like that. Anyway, like as far as like affecting, like giving those people like running water and things like that, the NAGPRA does not give a shit about that. But it seems like this like huge effort to, you know, right or wrong that's not really, as you said, archaeologically speaking, affecting them, marginalizing anyone, you know?
Right. Not anymore. Yeah. And you know, you were talking about how this is a sensitive topic, which is why when I cover it, I really try to focus on the fact that, I mean, I have the most interest in ancient history. If it's 500 years old, I'm not all that interested in it. If it's 5,000 years old, now I'm very interested in it, right? And so that's what I focus on, is the ridiculousness of the fact that remains and artifacts that are 5,000 years old are forcibly being repatriated to modern tribes that have no association with them, that they're being
Right.
from public, you know. So like, yes, this can get complicated, this can get sensitive, you know, and it can be difficult to determine where to draw the line on these things. But I think we can all agree that when we're dealing with something that's 10,000 years old, we've well passed the line, right?
Correct.
We're no longer in sensitive territory here. This should not be sensitive. This is ridiculous that we're treating, you know, that the same as digging up someone who's 300 years old and who has direct family ties still existing and going, yeah, we can't put that on display in a museum. Like, that's a totally different issue than destroying 10,000-year-old archaeological evidence.
Yeah, Pat Breezy mentioned earlier that the Iroquois had a big part in writing our Constitution, and I don't think that you know, this is what the founding fathers or the people that they were working with, the tribes that they're working with at the time, had in mind. You know, this is like me going back to like Ireland, and because the Irish were extremely marginalized as well. It's like me complaining about the Fighting Irish being offensive or something, or me going back to Ireland and being like, hey, put this shit away. Don't show this stuff, right?
Yeah. And again, to me, the whole idea that this is even based on respect is ridiculous. I don't think it is. I think NAGPRA is one of the most disrespectful things that's ever come out. You know, again, the hundreds of tribes that aren't federally recognized, that legally don't exist, that have to have their artifacts and remains given to other tribes, that's not respectful. You know, and how is it respecting modern tribes to give them remains that are 10,000 years old? Like, the idea that this is about respect, I fully reject. I think that's nonsense. This is about power. This is about control. This goes beyond archaeology, by the way. Biden issued, and this was deleted off the White House website, but it is a real thing that went out, a real order that went out from Biden, where he highlighted several industries, not only archaeology and agriculture, but like specifically and repeatedly climate change, and gave a directive to all federal employees to not only defer to Native Americans on issues of archaeology, but on any issue, and specifically on issues of climate change, a multi-billion-dollar industry that's allegedly tied to the fate of humanity's survival, right? That is to be determined by Native American tribal leaders, not by the science, not by scientists. So, you know, the power plays come in all over the place. There's natural resources, there's land grabs, there's climate change. This really is a huge issue that ties into a lot of things. It is a lot bigger than archaeology. This is happening globally. Rue will tell you about the things that's going on in Australia, about, you know, you can look at the things going on in Canada as well. The fake mass graves that were used to generate money, like all of this, none of it's about respect. they don't give a crap about Native Americans. They are using them as pawns. They're using them as tools to manipulate, these power games. And then archaeology is kind of along for the ride. Like I said, they're in their little echo chamber. They've gone so extreme. They're very easy to manipulate because they are in this extreme leftist echo chamber. And so they go, oh, respect natives. And they'll go, oh, well, we must bow down. We must do whatever. We can't possibly offend anyone. So it's not the archaeologists that are driving this. There's larger forces at play here that are playing power games, and archaeologists are just, like the natives, a useful tool to use. But speaking archaeologically, the end goal here is a full 1984, a fully erased history where they can change it day by day and say, this is the story that our past was today. And tomorrow we'll have a different story, and the next day we'll have a different one.
Yeah, and I see that playing out in different areas of our society, without getting into all that. But I just didn't know it was playing out in American archaeology. I want to shout out the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Cheyenne River Reservation, and the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. I met a lot of nice people there. And it was really shocking, actually, to see that most people in the United States have no idea that in the center of the country, the poorest, most horrific conditions, third world countries exist in the middle of our country. And that seems like a more appropriate usage of energy and funding and legislation, wouldn't you say?
I definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, most people don't even know that's occurring. No one's trying to fix it because people don't even know it's happening.
Is this one of those things that people are afraid to touch? Because I've had the conversation with myself today, going, this is a sensitive subject, so I want to handle it in a, in an appropriate way and in a respectful way. And I watched a bunch of your videos, so I knew that you were going to handle it in a respectful way. But even I had a conversation with myself about is this going to bring me weirdos jumping in there? The word I mentioned that earlier that we won't say, people like that hopping on and getting mad at me for even talking about this on my show.
Yes, it will. And just the name Elizabeth Weiss will do that. So yeah, as far as now, I don't know why the alternate people haven't been touching this topic. Like I said, I think it's just too big. And so when I go, hey, all of archaeology is being erased. Hey guys, I think they're okay, crazy person. I think that's kind of the reaction, understandably so. But as far as mainstream, absolutely, people aren't able to touch this because it is so controversial that yes, it would cause problems for them and draw attention to them that they don't want.
It's also relatively new, like you're talking a year and a half ago, right? I mean, if Tyrone and I were to go places we were in Georgia 2 years ago now, historical sites and stuff, they'd look a lot different. Tyrone, do you want me to pull up that, it was like a map thing that you brought?
Oh, yeah. It was that Native American map that shows of course, all the Native Americans in the world, but specifically in the U.S.
And so, I feel like they could use something like this to at least identify. Maybe they do to identify who's what.
You can scroll in.
So they used to have a whole system laid out where they would go by geographical association. They'd go by genetic association, which again, not a lot of genetic testing is done. So they usually wouldn't have that data. They go by, looking at the artifacts and what the artifacts look like, what culture they're from. So yes, they used to have a weighted system where they would go through all of these various types of evidence to try and figure out what tribe is most closely associated with these things. And now that's all been done away with, and it's been replaced by that's mine.
Huh. These are the guys I was talking about, the Micmacs. I made a wigwam out of birch bark in 6th grade. But it's funny because that's what I learned about Native American culture, was that they were nomadic and built wigwams and stuff like that, when really, especially I learned this from Dr. Little, if you go back further than that, before colonial intervention, there were systematic cities, roads, all that stuff that's just been kind of covered up by time.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about on my show not too infrequently is that the Americas were way more advanced. They were doing way more than they're given credit for.
Yes.
And I would make the argument that they were on par with, if not exceeding, what was going on in the old world at the same time. And there is a fall off. As we get closer to Columbus, right, they experienced a very devastating population collapse, and there were some things that even happened before that. But you go back 2,000 years, you go back 7,000 years, the first copper smelting was happening in the Americas.
Right.
It's like the Americas were a happening place, and that doesn't get talked about, that doesn't get covered. We really focus on America. History starts when Columbus arrived.
Yeah, and the truth is, it didn't. We want to know what these people were up to. Because out of respect, right? Like, it's out of like curiosity and respect. And the wildest thing about this is that like the history that we're talking about preserving is usually it's very difficult to connect it to a modern tribe. But a modern tribe is the one who gets to say. And then I didn't even know that there was like hundreds of smaller unrecognized tribes that like don't get a say.
And they're not even necessarily smaller. They're just unrecognized. Some of the federally recognized tribes are super tiny. Some are huge. And same with the unrecognized ones. And a lot of them have like state recognition, but they don't have federal recognition. So legally they don't exist.
Right. I was going to say a lot of books that I've read that talks about Native American history are usually from what people from the African scholars. They talk a lot about it, like Ivan von Sertima. He talks a lot about it in his book. There's books with I can't remember this other guy's name off the top of my head for some reason, but they usually talk about the different Native American because they'd like to do the correspondence between how their names were changed, just like black people's, went from Negro to black to colored, from colored to black, and so on and so forth. So Native Americans had their names changed depending on what they wanted to classify them in certain states and stuff. So a lot of African scholars do talk about them. They're pretty much the only people that I actually do read a lot about the Native Americans.
And, going back to what you were showing a few minutes ago, for location stuff, the Trail of Tears was not an isolated event. Pretty much every single native population in America was displaced and moved across the country. There were a lot of very messed up things that happened in the past, for sure.
Yeah, my brain always goes to like, how the fuck do we fix this? Like when it comes to issues like this, and I keep thinking that like if people knew, like not just Native Americans, but Native Americans especially, that's why I appreciate you sticking your neck out there, man, because it is a controversial subject, and somebody with like a platform like a Jimmy Corsetti could move the needle on this. But I think ultimately Native Americans need to know what's happening as well. And they're the ones who could really move the needle, I think.
I mean, I think just general awareness, everyone needs to know, right?
Yeah.
I think I look at the Göbekli Tepe response, right? That's an 11,000-year-old site that was being moderately mismanaged. And there was a lot of outrage over that. And it showed me that people care about these things. People care about the ancient history of our world. And if there's that much outrage over one site that's 11,000 years old, this is an entire nation's history for, 17,000+ years being entirely erased, not mismanaged, but erased and destroyed. So I think if people knew what was happening, native or otherwise, people would care, and I think there would be, deserved fury over it. And I think that's what's needed. That's been my whole mission here, is just trying to raise awareness.
Yeah.
Because I think people do care about this. They just don't know. And the only, I talked about things being overturned in the courts earlier and stuff like that, but the only hope we have at stopping this is raising awareness and generating outrage, because without societal pressure, it wouldn't even matter if NAGPRA was repealed. We could repeal NAGPRA today, throw the whole thing in the garbage, and it wouldn't change a thing. The trajectory wouldn't change at all, because there's the extreme culture of archaeology that still exists. Like I said, before this was legally mandated, there was a large portion of archaeologists who were already doing things according to this most recent update. So the law isn't the problem. It's the extreme culture that's developed within archaeology. And the only way to change that is with public outrage, is with people getting upset and going, no, this is unacceptable. This needs to stop. So that's my mission. That's my goal, is just trying to raise awareness. If I can, get in touch with Jimmy and get him to talk about this, that would be like, yes, I've been trying for a year to get anyone to talk about this.
Well, I'm glad I was able to bring you on. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think he would be the perfect person. I mean, he got
get me in touch with him.
I mean, I've been trying. I probably know somebody, David Stig. I talked to him from Cosmic Summit.
They're friends. Yeah, I know.
We became really close. He's really good friends with Jimmy, or he talks to him at least personally on the phone. So I shoot him a message and let him know. I also tagged you in one of the Native American communities that I'm in on Twitter. Cool. So that way you guys can see that too, because those that they do, if anybody that you want, a Native American's perspective on, they will be the best ones right there, because they actually hold spaces about their, whatever is going on in their community and stuff like that. And like I said, I had a discussion with one of them that actually we had a great discussion with for about 2 hours. So yeah.
Very cool.
I'm always giving sources.
Yeah, you know who has a decent sized platform, who's much more like accessible, approachable, who I think might be interested in this, is Michael Collins from Wandering Wolf. I'm not, don't claim to be good buddies of his, but I feel like putting this on his radar.
It's been on his radar for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great guy. One of my favorite guys in the space. And he's super nice. He's super helpful. I can reach out to him again and see what he has to say, but yeah, I promise you, I've been trying to get this news out there, and it just hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, Rue says every culture in history has been colonized, conquered, displaced. Focusing on it as an issue for one particular instance is political, not fixing past injuries. Yeah, that hits the nail right on the head.
No one cries about modern pagans not having control over Roman, like that. I totally reject the entire narrative that this is about like respecting natives. It's not. That's just a tool they use to bash people over the head with.
All right. So I sent David's, I call him Stig because that's what he likes to be called by. I sent him a message about you, sent him the video of us right now. He's sent it to him as DM, told him to hit up you if possible. We'll see how far this goes.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get the word out here. 6 or 7 people shared this. I wish we had more views live, but we don't. But we'll keep. We're averaging about normal. We'll share it around as much as possible, and maybe as things develop, we can have you on again. You're right. I think you're spot on about generating public outrage. That's how Jimmy helped get the trees removed from Göbekli Tepe. Is enough people heard what he was saying and got pissed off about it. And some people will say he had nothing to do with it, but the truth is, in my opinion,
was obviously him. Yeah,
obviously. And so stay the course, Goob. Stay the course, okay?
Yeah, thank you. And I truly thank you for having me on. And, it's nice just to know that there's at least a few other individuals now you guys talk to other people all the time. So like it might be a small step, but it's at least a step in the right direction. This is more progress towards raising awareness than I've made by myself in the last year. So I greatly appreciate it.
Hey man, you're welcome. We're a very open-minded show. We don't get extreme about anything. And I'm very against First Amendment violations and erasures of history. Typically, I'm wearing my Mike and Dave's Multiverse shirt right now, but I'll often wear my 1984 shirt while I'm doing this show because it's something that's real and it can happen and is happening in different areas of our culture right now, and it scares the shit out of me. And so just hearing about another one, I'm a bit outraged. And so, yeah, you're welcome, Goob. I wanted to, before we let you go, ask about, on a lighter note, you're affiliated with the Institute for Natural Philosophy. They're doing a lot of things right now. A lot of their plans are in infancy. I was talking to Ricardo, the president, earlier today. He's planning to move here for about 9 months to both Canada and spend some time in the US. But one of the projects is this Digital Alexandria project that's got me kind of excited. I mean, you're involved in that. Would you mind telling us about that?
Yeah. So the project, like a lot of it, is in its infancy still. We've got a long way to go before it's a real thing. Like there's just certain things that unfortunately can't be sped up, and you just have to wait for time to pass. So that's kind of where we're still at. But the project aims to document every megalithic site around the world. And we want to facilitate research. We also just want to provide an experience. Most people will not be able to visit most of these megalithic sites in their lifetime. So the goal is to provide as close to an experience of visiting these sites digitally as we can. So we're looking for high quality drone shots, high quality photography, high quality video, and it's all going to be uploaded on the Digital Alexandria website and freely accessible by anyone. And like I said, those time elements we have to wait on, right? We're trying to set this up properly. We're trying to do this the right way because there have been several other projects that have tried to do the same thing that we're doing, and they've never come anywhere close to completion. There's a website called megalithics.co.uk. That's one such project that is still in existence today and is still in progress today. And after, 15 years or something like that, it might not be that long, but after many years, they've made so little progress. So we're trying to set ourselves up so that we're not reliant on like volunteer hours to get this done or things like that. We're trying to set it up properly so that this is actually going to happen. It's actually going to happen properly. And we'll have the resources and ability to actually execute this, which is going to take some time. However, there is one element that we are relying on the community for, and that is helping us to find content creators like Wandering Wolf, like Weird Old World, like the ever-growing number of people who are going out into the field and documenting these sites with high-quality visuals. Because, like I said, this is global. We're trying to document every megalithic site around the world. I'm not on VK, right? I'm not on Russian Facebook. So finding the content creators in Russia is going to be difficult for me. So that is the element we're hoping that the community can contribute to this project. We're hoping the community can help us find these content creators so that we can reach out to them and we can partner with them and we can bring the absolute highest quality content to the world. We've already got a few creators in Peru that are actively documenting sites for us. That's where we're going to start, is roll out content for Peru and then expand to the rest of America and then eventually the whole world. But we've really got a few creators in Peru and we've got a few creators that are a little bit broader, but we need to find creators around every part of the world, from India to Russia to everywhere. So if you have anyone who fits that description, you can contact me on Twitter. You can contact me on my YouTube. You can email me at thegoobinator@gmail.com. Any way you want to contact me is fine. Let us know about these content creators. And if you want to contribute your time or your efforts to this project, if it sounds interesting to you, please go to the Institute for Natural Philosophy and you can apply to, be a contributor and specify that you want to contribute to the Digital Alexandria project, and we will find something for you to do. We're definitely taking, everything from people who want to donate, like maybe you've got a logo that you made up and you go, hey, if I want to contribute a logo, like whether it be small or you want to work on this full time, we've got all kinds.
Speaking of logos, Rue says, sorry, he forgot to finish the logo. Seems like an inside joke. But yeah, the Institute's got this, they've got some big ideas, and they're really I think are about to make a huge impact. And I like the global community aspect of that. Like guys like Cody from East 10 Productions is going to be going out and documenting some sites. I might get the opportunity to go with him here in March to Mexico. But I think that's a worthy mission is to have all these like high quality videos of these sites in the database where you can just go look at them as much as you want. I wanted to say that I think Tyrone's been posting this link in places and we just got a big bump in views. So if you're catching the end of this, please go back and watch when Goob first comes on about 20 minutes in, because he tells the whole story about NAGPRA. Then you guys joined when we were talking Digital Alexandria, but we want to spread the word on the issues with NAGPRA and the update that's basically erasing North American history and destroying access from scientists and archaeologists, and basically destroying history.
A blanket ban on information about Native Americans to the public, effectively. Yeah. And so, Brittany's going to put the Goob's website, or not website, YouTube channel, where there's more information in the chat. And check out Elizabeth Weiss. She's been on this far longer than I have. She's been fighting this for like 20 years now. She is the expert. I'm just trying to amplify her message.
Yeah. And I'm going to hit the walkout music and we'll start wrapping it up. I wanted to,
It's going in and out, but yeah, I just want to say I appreciate it. Given the information, I sent a lot of people out some information just so we can see what we can do to tackle this thing that you got going on.
Thank you, Tyrone.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Goob, as more stuff comes out, any developments happen, please let us know. You're always welcome to come on the live stream and share about this, because I do want to amplify this. I feel pissed off, but a little bit honored that I got to be one of the first people to platform you besides yourself. And I'm hoping that more people hear about this just through my channel, and it snowballs from there, because it sounds like you're willing to jump on anyone's show and tell this story, right?
Absolutely.
You got to come on mine next then.
Yeah, man, I'm down.
Yeah, Tyrone's got a decent platform going on, so that's a great fit. I'm trying to think of other people. Later tonight, while I'm spinning this around in my head, I will think of other people and other shows that maybe might want to bring you on, because this isn't about, you're right, it's not about respect. It's about political virtue signaling in the archaeological community, but then it's also about power and power structures and power grabs and things like that. And people are politicizing this issue, and it shouldn't be politicized. Science, history shouldn't be political issues. They belong to all of us, whether you're political or you're whatever political side you belong to. This belongs to everyone, right?
Very well said. Yes.
All right. Good night, everyone. Remember, check out our book of the month. That's UFO Symphonic by Mike Fiorito. We've got it posted all over our social media. You can support the channel by checking out our Buy Me a Coffee. You can support the channel by going to Galaxy Treats and get some hemp products. You can support the channel just by liking and subscribing and sharing what we talk about. Trying to get the message out there. History is important to me. It's near and dear to my heart. And so it was my honor and privilege to have the Goob on, and we're looking forward to his next appearance. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you, Brittany, for all your hard work. I'm going to end the stream. We can all hang out